All right, last night's feature presentation for April 5th, 2024. One Dark Night, 1982. This is not one that is on the must-watch for the spring season of movie watching. It's also never been in Horror Fest, though it could be. It's really suitable for a Friday night. The events feel like a Friday night. I think they are. I think they do take place on a Friday night. A group of high school girls have a club called the Sisters, and in order to initiate one girl into the group, they send her into a mausoleum to spend the night. And this is the first time I saw this. It's a good novel idea, and it really hit the spot. So the girl that they send into the mausoleum is played by Meg Tilly. Most of you know Meg Tilly, the Big Chill, Agnes of the Gods. A year later, she was in Psycho 2 with Anthony Perkins, and she was also in Masquerade, 1988. Pretty good, pretty underrated mystery film. She plays the girl who goes to the mausoleum. She kind of fulfills the pure girl of the group. Then you have Robin Evans, who was not in much else, but she's a real pretty, kind of blondish girl, and she plays kind of the leader of the group. And she's really just, loves the whole initiation thing. She also played in High School USA, the TV movie, if you've ever seen that. But there are two other girls in the group. Leslie Spieth, I think is the pronunciation. She's the black girl in the film. She is the oldest actress of the four. So she's 24 playing a high school kid. Kind of pushing it there, but it's fine. It's the 80s. It works fine. This was her only full-length movie. She did have a pretty nice little success in the 80s doing some voice acting with, there was cartoons like the GoBots, Pound Puppies. There was a New Kids on the Block. I think it was like 1989 or 1990. She was also did some voice acting for a Scooby-Doo spinoff. I think it was called like A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. So that was most of her career. You have Elizabeth Daily is the fourth one. And Elizabeth Daily, she also goes as E.G. Daily in some films, but she has a lot of credit listings. She was in Better Off Dead as Elizabeth Daily. I'm pretty sure she sings. She's playing herself in that film as a singer, because she was also a singer in real life. She had a single from that movie soundtrack, Better Off Dead, that did not chart. So I'm pretty sure that's what, if I remember correctly, there was a band and she was singing in it at some point. But she also had a top 100 hit in 1985 called Say It, Say It. I've seen the 45. It hit with the number 70 on the charts. She was in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. She was in Fandango, pretty solid early Kevin Costner film. She's got great screen presence in this film. Incredible face. I mean, hair. She's the best looking one of the four. Some people, just my opinion, Meg Tilly, people might say the others, but E.G. Daily is just very, very attractive. And you get the feeling that they abandoned her character because maybe she had something else. She had some commitment or something. Because when they drop off Meg Tilly's character at the mausoleum to spend the night. But the three other girls come back later to set up some scares for Meg Tilly. And on the way, Elizabeth Daily has some moral dilemma with them giving Meg Tilly some Damerol. And so Robin Evans, as I said, was the leader of the group, questions her and says, if you're not all in, then I'm dropping you off right here. So she stops the car and drops her off in like a tunnel where they just came through. And the last you see of E.G. Daily in this film is her just walking home, I presume, but you don't see her anymore. So anyway, David Mason Daniels plays the leather jacket wearing, just prototypical, just handsome boyfriend of Meg Tilly. And then you have he's kind of he's pretty weak. He was not in much else. He was in a TV show called Capital. This was the biggest thing he was ever in the 80s. But he's a little weak in this movie. He does show up at the end and kind of helps out, but almost gets killed. But there's a couple in this film, Melissa Newman, who ends up kind of being the hero at the end, and then her husband is played by Adam West, who his presence in this film is pretty much all but not needed. The character too, they could have put anyone else in that role besides Adam West, and it wouldn't have really mattered. I don't think having his name on the billing towards the bottom of the billing did anything to move the needle for the box office for this movie. But there's some telekinetic guy who died, and he happens to be in the mortuary. They just put him in there, and he had this. He's able to he's bringing people back to life. He's got these powers, and so that you have dead people coming back to life in the mortuary. It's a very nice atmosphere in that mortuary. It's real cool looking. It's kind of, even though it's kind of ritzy, this is pointed out by Robin Evans' character. She says it's for, at least you get to spend the night with high class people. I think that telekinetic guy just moved my camera. But the big thing about this film that I never knew was that it was written and directed by a guy named Tom McLoughlin, who did probably the best known for doing for writing and directing Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, 1986, which would be 4 years later. And he is credited among some of the fans of that franchise as being the guy who kind of saved the franchise, because it was the movie after Part 5 where the audience felt cheated because there was no real Jason in the film. And then in Part 6, Tom McLoughlin comes in and brings back the kind of a new zombie invincible Jason, which you would see for that film and in Part 7 and Part 8 and in Jason X. So he was influenced by Frankenstein, and that's how he came up with the idea of reviving Jason back to life with the lightning and the grave. And he really liked the Frankenstein films, and he seemed to have a lot of love for this whole bringing people back to life. Sometimes They Come Back was another one he directed from 1991, so an early 90s film that does have a following. I've never seen it, but these are probably the two that he's most known for. And then he did One Dark Night in 1982, which has a lot of that, bringing people back to life. The big special effects in this film in the makeup, he had a great team of maybe 10 people that did an excellent job with the makeup of the people in the morgue and coming back. And it's not the longest sequence, but what you get there, if you're into that stuff, that's something that's for you. If you're into that whole like zombie stuff, I'm not really, but it's the makeup and special effects job is right up there with its contemporary, the 1985 or 84 film Return of the Living Dead. Okay, so that, which of course you get a bigger scope of it in Return of the Living Dead, and you get a lot, and it's longer, and there's more zombies. You even get midget zombies and all these different stuff. So maybe a little better, but as far as pound for pound, it's right up there. So this, and it also ranks up there. The premise of the whole getting into a club with an initiation, of course, that's been done before. This is pretty cool. I'd have to research to see if it's ever been done, like with a graveyard, a mortuary, or something like that. I'm sure it has. This might be the only one, though, that I've seen. But if you want to see a better one from this era, check out 1981, the 1991 film, horror film, very underrated. Linda Blair, Peter Barton, Vincent Van Patten movie, Hell Night, which is a great horror fest film. might have to add to our Horror Fest 2024 initiation in some kind of haunted mansion, which had been done before too. But that's a much better done film than One Dark Night. But One Dark Night also, it kind of fits into this category that I kind of came up with last night of this early 80s morgue horror. So you have this film from 82. You have a film called Funeral Home from 1980. I forgot a lot about this movie, but it's about I think a girl mourning the death of her maybe grandparent. She moves to her grandparents' home, like a bed and breakfast. It used to be a funeral home. There's mysterious deaths. And then you have, so I forgot most of that film. You have Mortuary from 1982, same year as One Dark Night. This one is worth checking out, simply because it has Christopher George and Linda Day George, great horror legends. I think maybe one of Christopher George's last films before his death. And you also get to see a young Bill Paxton, rest in peace, in this movie. Mortuary, 1982. But it has a lot of just the 80s theme still of kind of the teen couples and stuff. But the fourth one, Mausoleum, 1983, this one is different from those other three because it's a little more serious than the other three. It's more about like possession and kind of supernatural, and it's probably the weakest, but it feels more like it could have been made by like an Italian director. It's void of any of this like 80s shtick stuff. And you also get to see LaWanda Page in this movie. LaWanda Page, who played Aunt Esther in Sanford and Son. I gotta check this one out again. It's kind of weak, but it's one of those check the box films. But those four that I just mentioned, or I guess they're kind of unique in a way because they all fall in that early 80s horror, but they weren't slashers at all. And the slasher genre was the big thing for horror, subgenre was the big thing for the horror genre in the early 80s. Even Psycho 2, which I mentioned earlier, Meg Tilly's in that, took, from 1983, it took Psycho 2 23 years to make a sequel. They waited until the going was good and the iron was hot with the slasher thing to bring back a movie or to do a sequel to a movie that was kind of a forerunner, one of the first kind of things with slasher elements in it. Not the first one, but one of the first ones. But this film, I would say, if you haven't seen it and you're an 80s horror fan, just check it out. It's pretty good. It's got just the kind of cheesy ending scare at the end. It's kind of predictable. A little slow moving at times. You get some cool shots of David Mason Daniels and Meg Tilly on a date doing the photo booth and playing video games out on a dock. So it has a lot of early 80s feel to it, which is kind of cool. So I would say just check it out, but I would not like highly recommend it. It's one of those, like I said, just sort of check the box kind of things if you're a horror fan. One Dark Night, 1982. That's about all. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Shock, for picking it. All right, guys. See you later.